So let me give you another example. You talk a lot about how there's no time and there's no things. But I've heard you say many times that people used to believe that the earth was flat and that the sun revolved around it. And eventually people came to know and understand that the earth is actually round and it revolves around the sun. So I'm thinking, okay, there's time, what people used to believe in contrast to what they know now. So time. And then we have objects or things, the earth with objective qualities, flat or round, and the sun. And then we have a relationship between these two things, the sun and the earth. So it sounds somewhat contradictory. Do you see what I'm getting at? There are no things, but there's the earth and the sun, and they have objective qualities, and there's no time.
Yes, but I'm talking at different levels there, Francis. When I speak of the earth being round, not flat, and this earth going round the sun not going round the earth, we're talking at a level where we provisionally credit objects with their own existence. We're talking at a relative level. When I say there are no objects, I'm talking at a different level. It's a much higher level of understanding.
And this is the point that I think I've been missing. It's this distinction between absolute reality and a relative level within absolute reality.
Yes, so from the absolute point of view, there are no objects. There is no time, there is no space. But at a relative level, it's legitimate and necessary to speak of objects and time and space. It's not, in other words, we can use the concepts, time, space, objects, people, and so on. The concepts of these entities is not problematic. What's problematic is when that concept becomes downgraded to a belief, and that we believe that those concepts refer to things that really exist in their own right.
So none of these things exist independently of consciousness, but within consciousness.
It's worse than that, Francis. None of these things exist dependent on consciousness. Nothing exists, period. No thing exists.
But then how do you explain what's going on? How do you explain the
what's going on is an appearance. When you have a dream, when you dream you're on a Caribbean beach, the beach, the trees, the water, the sand, the people, and so on, they all seem to exist. For the person in the dream, for the person sitting on the deck chair and the Caribbean beach, the deck chair, the sand, the water is very real. They seem to be real objects. When you wake up, you realize there were no objects there. No object existed in my dream. The time and space that seemed to be real in my dream were utterly unreal from the perspective of the waking state. Well, we're in a kind of dream state here, where time and objects and space seem to be real from our localized points of view. But when we wake up, when we go from the dream state to the waking state, and from the waking state up one level to consciousness, it's like waking up from a dream. There are no objects here. There's no time and space. It's all the appearance of, it's all how the act, just as the dream state is how the activity of the finite mind appears from the localized perspective of a character in that dream. So the objects, time and space that seem to appear in the waking state are how the activity of a universal mind, universal consciousness, appears from the perspective of a separate subject of experience in that state. That's from each of our points of view. So from our point of view, yes, it looks as if there's time, space, and objects. That's just an appearance.
Well, I've heard you make this dream analogy many times. And are you saying that at some point, all of us who came here today to this retreat and are sitting in this room having this conversation with you, that none of this is actually happening except as a dream in the mind of consciousness?
That's what I'm saying.
And will consciousness ever wake up and say, oh, there was no retreat, there was no...
Wake up right now. Do that right now. Just see right now that there are no objects, no people, no discrete, independently existing things. There are the appearance of things. Yes, I acknowledge that. But when we touch those things, when we try to find a thing in itself, You never find it. It's
But
just how it appears from this localized point of view.
that's so difficult, Rupert, because it's implying that none of this is actually happening. We're not having this conversation.
No, we are having this conversation, but this conversation is an appearance.
That means it's made out of awareness. It's
all
reality.
That's there. All that's there is consciousness.
That I can accept. I can accept that all of this is happening, but it's made out of consciousness, not matter.
But yes, it's all the activity of consciousness. Just like the dream is all the activity. The dream we have at night is the activity of our finite mind. It only appears to be matter from the localized perspective of the character in the dream. So all of this is the activity of infinite consciousness. It only appears to be made out of matter from our localized points of view. There's no matter there. There's nothing other than consciousness and its activity.
So what happens when you walk out into the street and get hit by the bus?
Well, the activity of consciousness appears as you being hit by the bus. That's
all right. I'm getting a D. I'm getting a D today.
No. It's fine. Your objections are they're very legitimate. They're good objections. You should be doing exactly what you're doing, Francis. You're pushing. Your mind is raising objections, and you're doing exactly the right thing. When I say all of this is the activity of infinite consciousness, in the same way that a dream that we have at night is the activity of our finite mind. So the activity of our finite minds is what we call thoughts. Let's just call them thoughts. So all there is to the dream that we have at night is thoughts in our mind. Everything that appears in the dream is really a thought in the mind of the dreamer. So everything that appears in the waking state, that's all of us, and all the objects are really God's thoughts. What we're looking at here is the inside of God's mind. When you get run over and hit by a bus, what happens? One of God's thoughts comes to an end.
That's the end of that particular aspect of God's thoughts.
That thought, when a thought comes to an end in our own mind, the stuff that it is made of does not cease. What is a thought made out of? Consciousness. A thought is just a temporary appearance of consciousness. When that thought comes to an end, the consciousness, which is its reality, doesn't end. When the movie comes to an end, the screen doesn't end. Its appearance ends. So when a thought in our mind comes to an end, no thing comes to an end. The limited consciousness of each of our minds simply stops appearing as that thought. Well, when we come to an end, if you consider each of us to be thoughts in the mind of God, when we come to an end, when we're hit by the bus or when we die, what we really are, infinite consciousness, doesn't come to an end. It just ceases appearing as you and I.
You're very kind, and if I didn't think you were ultimately right, which I intuit that you are, I would be here. I really feel in my gut that you're right, and I'm just trying to get to where you are, which takes, I guess, a lot of time to do.
Francis, what I would suggest is that it's not really that you think I'm right. I'm just a placeholder in your mind for your own innate intelligence. When you really think, oh, Rupert is right, that's just your mind's interpretation. What you're really saying is, I know for myself that what is being said is true, but my mind, due to its conditioning, just cannot quite believe it. So in order for your mind to legitimize its disbelief, it projects your own intuition onto me. And you make this sound as if this is some special knowledge that I have that you may or may not believe. No, when you feel deeply, I intuit that what is being said is true. You're intuiting, you're experiencing your own understanding. Your mind is not doubting me. It's doubting your own innate intelligence.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit, but I but I understand what you're saying very much. Thank you. Much appreciated.
And just one thing you said about not being here. If you didn't think I was right, it's and again I'm not just putting myself down or being self-deprecating, but it's really, you're here because of your own intuition. You're not here because of me. You're here because this intelligence, this innate intelligence in you has woken up and is disturbing your mind, and is calling, it's impressing itself upon your mind, and your mind is in a state of rebellion. So, but it's really that your own innate intelligence that's brought you here.
Well, you're right, but I will just say that if I hadn't found you, I wouldn't have embarked on this investigation, and I greatly appreciate it very much.
Hi, Rupert. Martina.
Hi, Martina.
Can you talk a bit about time and space? Because I think it's helping to,
Okay.
yeah, how we perceive the world, and from
Okay. So
because you also use the term of localization.
okay.
In
All right. So time and space. Let's start with time. So the one infinite, dimensionless reality made of pure consciousness. We use the term consciousness in the context of this conversation. It assumes, it vibrates within itself, and one of the forms of its vibration is called thinking. It's just one aspect of the human mind, thinking. So in order for thinking, in order for thoughts to take place, thoughts, they take place in infinite consciousness. But the activity of thinking localizes consciousness. So from the point, the activity of thinking is a finite mind. Imagine a finite mind at the moment that doesn't perceive, it just thinks. So this localization of infinite consciousness called thinking, because it's limited, it cannot know infinite consciousness. Because it is a limited activity. Through the lens of that limited activity of thinking, consciousness cannot be known. So consciousness must appear to thinking in a form that is consistent with its own limitations. That's time. So if you think about what time is from a conventional point of view, it's a kind of empty container that contains all our thoughts. Well, that empty container is the closest the mind gets to representing infinite consciousness. It cannot represent infinite consciousness because everything the mind represents is consistent with its own limitations. So when the mind tries to represent the infinite, or when the thinking mind tries to represent the infinite appears as time. So time is what the infinite looks like, or how it appears from the perspective of thought. Now, imagine that this mind now grows, and it consists not only of thinking, but of perceiving. Seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. So now the mind is becoming more complex. And just as through thinking the mind cannot know reality, the infinite, as it is, because thinking imposes its own limitations on everything that it knows. So from the point of view of perceiving, the perceiving mind cannot see reality as it is for the same reason. It imposes its own limitations on everything that it perceives. So when the perceiving mind looks at reality, it doesn't see this dimensionless presence. It imposes its own limitations on that presence and appears as space. Mm-hmm. So time is how the eternal appears from the perspective of the thinking mind. Space is how the infinite appears from the perspective of the perceiving mind. Mm-hmm. So time and space are the closest representations that a human mind makes of the infinite, eternal, infinite reality.
So there is just this here and now.
Now, the here and now are very interesting because the now partakes both of time and eternity. Mm-hmm. It exists at the intersection of the two. Mm-hmm. And the here partakes of both space and the infinite. Let's start with time. From a conventional point of view, on the line of time, that there is an experience that we refer to as now. It is the moment now. Mm-hmm. So from the point of view of time, the now is a moment. But actually, in our experience, the now is not a moment. For instance, how many nows have passed since you and I have been having a conversation?
No, that's just...
How many nows have passed in your life?
Yeah, it's always now.
It's always now. In fact, we never leave the now. We've never even left the now and visited the past or the future. No one's ever experienced the past or the future. So in our actual experience, the now is not a moment that is sandwiched between the two vast spaces of the past and the future. The now is the ever-present, not the... time is not everlasting. The now is the ever-present. So from this point of view, the now is written with a capital M. The now is eternity. From the point of view of time, the now is a moment. So the now is the place where time and eternity intersect. And that is why in the spiritual traditions, the now is a portal through which we pass out of time into eternity. Now, just do exactly the same exercise with space. It's more difficult with space. First of all, recognize that the only experience you have ever had is here. Just as we never experience the past or the future. We can think about the past or the future, but we only do so now. So ask yourself the question, the place that you call over there, have you ever been there? If I were to ask you now, stand up and go over there, would it always be here? Would your experience always be here? Or would you leave the here? Yeah. Has anybody ever left the experience we call here and visited the place we call there? No, here is always... And isn't the experience of here always the same experience? In other words, here is not a place in space, just as now is not a moment in time. Here is the infinite, just as the now is the eternal. It's the infinite here. The here is not a place in space. All space takes place here, not here a place in... We can't indicate it. I say here, but I don't mean here. Here. So, but just as now is the intersection of time and eternity, so here is the placeless place at which this point in space where we seem to be located intersects with the infinite. So that the here, the placeless place we call here is the place at which we pass out of space into the infinite. We don't even pass out of it. The place we call here is the infinite. It just appears as space to our limited perceiving faculties. We don't exist in time and we are not in time and space now. This is eternity. This is the infinite. The place at which we eternally are is the infinite. The only place where anything ever is. It's not a place in space. It's not a moment in time. Time and space are just how the one eternal infinite reality to our impoverished perceiving faculties. Remember William Blake, life's dim windows of the soul distort the heavens from pole to pole. and cause us to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye. Life's dim windows of the soul, that's our eyes, the dim windows of the soul. Life's dim windows of the soul distort the heavens. Heavens is reality. Life's dim windows of the soul distort the heavens from pole to pole and make us to believe a lie when we perceive with, not through the eye.
It's beautiful.
So beautiful, so beautiful, so much understanding condensed into a few lines. Well, I take 10 minutes to explain it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
My question is about time. So I wrote it down. So I intellectually understand that there's only now and that time is a concept. And I can understand and feel that being provides continuity. Yet, as I'm watching my daughter grow up, I find it very hard to actually recognize time as just a concept. And I wonder if this keeps me locked into my separate self. So,
all the mind's experience takes place or seems to take place in time and space. So all our objective experience takes place through the mind, thinking and perceiving. And thinking and perceiving superimpose their own limitations on our experience. And our experience appears in conformity with those limitations. Now, our minds are constructed, a human being's mind is constructed in a certain way, thinking and perceiving. And thinking makes reality appear as time, and perceiving makes reality appear as space. So, as long as all our experience, by definition, appears to take place in time and space, so the appearance of time and space continues. Don't expect that to go. So, of course, when you look at your daughter growing up, you look at your daughter through your finite mind. Your only knowledge of your daughter is through the faculties of thinking and perceiving. So you look at your daughter through your finite mind, and of course she appears to you in time and space. Her life is, she's growing up in time. She moves around in space. It can't be any other way. That's the way it appears. So don't expect that to go. Don't expect that appearance to change. But just understand that the time and space in which your daughter, and indeed everything, seems to exist are not qualities of reality. They are the limitations that our mind imposes on reality. You've heard me say before, one that wears orange-tinted glasses sees white snow as orange. Why does the white snow look... And then they forget that they're wearing orange-tinted glasses. They think that the snow is orange. No, the snow is not orange. It doesn't have any color. It's the glasses through which we look that projects the color onto the snow. I'm not suggesting that glasses create the snow. The snow is already there, but it has no color of its own. No, it's the same. Reality is already there. Reality is not just a projection of the finite mind, but the reality is there, but it has no color or form of its own. It is the finite mind, the orange-tinted glasses. The finite mind in a human being's case is made out of thinking and perceiving. So consciousness looks through the tinted glasses, the glasses of thinking and perceiving. And instead of seeing white snow that has no form, no dimensions, it sees time and space. Time and space are like the orange snow. The orange is not in the snow. The orange is in the glasses. The time and space are in the glasses. They're not in reality. So as human beings, the only way we can... we look at reality through the lens of thinking and perceiving. Therefore, all our experience appears in time and space except one experience, the only experience there is that doesn't go through the lens of the finite mind, that doesn't go through thinking and perceiving, namely the knowing of being. And that's why I suggest that the knowing of being is the only experience there is that gives us direct access to reality. We get indirect access to reality when we look at the world, because we're still looking at reality. The world is still reality, but we perceive it through the filter of thinking and perceiving.